guest is Matt Casto. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hey, what do you do?
I'm a senior architect for ICC in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm focusing on Silverlight.
Now, we were talking earlier about some of the challenges of taking applications offline for occasionally connected systems.
Yeah.
Occasionally connected to their data source, occasionally connected to the internet. Let's continue that conversation. What are these challenges?
Well, the applications you're talking about are web applications, first of all, right? Because if they're not web applications, it doesn't really matter if you're online or offline. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you want to take a web application, you want to have a bit available. If you're going to be running it from a location that doesn't have a network connection, doesn't have a cell phone connection, maybe you're an AT&T customer. So those are the things that you need to worry about.
I am an AT&T customer.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
I felt that pain.
Yeah. And so you want to be able to, sometimes you have a situation where your fit client isn't it doesn't really fit as well. You've got a web app, but you want to maybe take all of or a portion of it and make sure that it's available if you don't have a network connection. And so I'm currently on a contract with ICC with the state of Ohio, and they had a situation like that, and we were doing some research into some possible solutions, and that led me to coming up with the ideas that I presented at CodeMesh.
Okay, so what are the possibilities?
Okay, well, there's some of the more exciting possibilities that are becoming available now are the HTML5. Parts of the HTML5 spec and parts of the specification that used to be HTML5, but people still consider HTML5. Of course, Flash, or specifically Air, which is the Flex/Flash implementation that will run outside of a browser, and Silverlight out of a browser. Okay. Those are the ones that we considered. There might be some other ones, but those are the specific ones that we consider.
Okay, and when you say, sir, you consider the strengths and weaknesses of each one, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about those. Where should we start? Start with HTML5?
Yeah, okay, so the strengths and weaknesses, the biggest weakness of HTML5 would be that it is not an accepted specification yet. Okay. And I don't recall the dates and the particulars, but I don't even think that it's dated to be ready for years to come.
Yeah, like 10 years to come.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not going to be implemented.
2022 or something.
That's what I heard as well. But that doesn't mean it won't be implemented long before then. In fact,
right.
Some browsers are implementing features of HTML5 today.
That's right. And but it's another thing you have to worry about is that those are the most recent versions of the browsers. Okay. And also, each browser has its own implementation. All right. And so there's a website, caniuse.com, that is a great resource for you go there, you can check the parts of HTML5 or other specifications that you're interested in, and it will create a chart with browser support. Okay,
so by choosing features of HTML5, you're basically restricting the clients to only certain browsers. If you use IE6, you can't use my application because it uses these new features.
Yeah.
Or you probably should be whipped as well because you're using such a sucky browser.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
IE8 people at least.
Yeah, at least. But IE9 beta is out and it has much better support. So, I mean, when I talk about HTML5, there's a lot of pieces to HTML5 that I did not look at, and so the features that I did focus on were, first of all, the offline caching, what's called the app cache or application cache, and local data storage, and some APIs that let you know if you're online or not. And there's a lot more to HTML5, but those are the ones I specifically looked at.
So these are I'm talking about implementation just a little bit here. We can't really show any code, but are we writing JavaScript?
Yeah.
To manage the caching within a browser using HTML5? Is that the idea?
So for caching, there's APIs for JavaScript that will show you what the browser is doing. Yeah. But the main thing to implement caching is, first of all, there's the cache manifest file that you write, and that's a list of instructions to the browser that on what pages to load, what pages to cache. So So your HTML picture web page, your HTML is it the body tag? Oh gosh, it's not in front of me now, so I'm drawing a blank. I believe
Well,
it's.
I use jQuery because I'm scared of JavaScript, raw JavaScript.
Yeah, but but I'm just talking straight HTML here, not JavaScript.
Okay.
There's an attribute in the head, in the body tag or the head tag. I can't.
Okay.
It's been a long day, but there's just an attribute that points to your manifest file, your cache manifest file.
It sounds like a head thing to me. I don't know that, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I think it is off the head.
Yeah.
And so you just point. You have a page that references it. That, like I said, is it's a list of instructions for the browser on what to download. And any browser that supports the app cache, well then, if it sees that, once it's finished loading the page, if it sees that, then it'll go ahead and behind the scenes cache any of the other pages that are loaded. So the great thing about that, beyond like browser caching that's been there forever, or HTML headers where you or web server settings where you can cache things, it's better than that because browsers that support this will, if you hit a page that's already been cached, it'll load them immediately. And it will cache pages that the user has not even requested yet.
Yeah.
Chrome supports it. Firefox 3.5 supports it. The latest version of Chrome supports it. Firefox 4 beta, of course, supports it.
Okay.
Safari IE9 does not yet,
Okay. So,
but I believe they have plans to do that.
okay.
And then on to the local storage. Local storage is a way for you through JavaScript to store data in the browser's cache, and it's just key value pairs.
Okay.
And just about everybody supports it right now.
Okay.
If you look at the can I use diagram or chart of which browsers do and don't support it, the only ones that are listed as not supporting it are like Opera Micro and Opera Mini. So that's the easiest one. I mean, there's really no reason you wouldn't do that today. A lot of people, if they need to store something, they'll use a cookie, but that's limited to
A small piece of data.
it's on the order of kilobytes.
Right.
But most browsers support at least up to 50 megabytes of data in the local data storage, and you can increase that in the user settings of the browser.
Okay, so HTML5, good solution. It's sort of standard. Well, it's quasi-standard because it's accepted yet. But for restricting the client or different implementations on different clients, you have to take that into account.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that's been missing that is still missing, even with the browser implementations. The specification doesn't one thing that comes to mind is the specification doesn't talk about what happens when you hit the limit or the quota of local data storage. There's no APIs around that. There's an error that should be thrown, but other than that, there's no APIs or ways to find where you can request for more storage, for instance. And that's the kind of stuff that is built into like Flex and Silverlight today.
Okay, all right, so let's move on let's do Flex next.
Okay, I'm a .NET developer by trade, and I've played with Flash, old versions of Flash, and I've had some projects, but this is the first time I've been able to look at Flex and actually try to build something with it. And I was actually really impressed by it, and it's way more similar to Silverlight than I thought. And it's really easy to play with it. You know, you download the part of the latest Creative Suite is called Flash Builder now. It used to be called Flex Builder, and you can create an Air project. Air is their, like I said, their offline application type, and you create that project, and then you can they have part of their SDK has this badge installer that lets you put as like a badge in your web page.
What's a badge?
Oh, it's just what they call. It's like it's what they call an implementation strategy that they use. You don't have to do that way. You can just link directly to your Air file that gets compiled.
Okay.
But the badge you can put in there, and it'll take care of making sure if you don't have the Air framework, then it'll install it. And then it'll
So
install
it's basically
it.
a launching point for your application.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing about an Air app, if you're building an offline application, you need to hit the web page before you can install it. So there is with all of these solutions, you have to be able to hit the page online before you can go offline.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so what are the advantages of Air versus disadvantages? Why would you consider that? Or I should say Flex.
Well,
Actually, I'm not even sure. Flex is the framework, and Air is the What define those things?
Okay, well, Flash, you know what Flash is?
So Flash is the punch the monkey,
Yeah, yeah, the Swift file.
the frog in the
runs.
blender.
Yeah, it's the Swift, the SWF file that gets loaded into a plugin in your browser.
Right. Always runs inside the browser.
Yeah, and well, actually, there's ways to run it outside, but that's the normal.
But it provides animation and interactivity.
Yeah.
Usually within a browser, usually within a web page.
Right, and Flex is like the developer platform version that compiles to a Swift file.
Okay.
So it's completely different. You can load assets from Flash into Flex and the reverse.
Okay.
But typically you would work in one environment or the other.
And what is Air?
Air is then a different project type, it compiles to a different type of file that can be run out of the browser.
Okay.
So that's there's probably a better description to it than that.
No, I like your description because it's you're coming up from the same angle I am. I'm a .NET guy as well.
Yeah.
So you're taking the same learning path that I am.
Yeah, and so when you're building a Flex project, you have your markup defined in a format called MXML. So it's XML based.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have code in ActionScript. Well, ActionScript is the language. It's an implementation of the ECMAScript.
So a lot of like JavaScript.
Yes, yeah. And you can have classes inside of ActionScript files, or you can just have them defined inside of a CData section of the XML. And that's kind of like the default. Like if you're laying out a form in the designer and you double click on a button, and it'll create an event handler and it throws it into the CData section at the top. So kind of like the code behind of a .NET project.
Right. So what are the advantages of using Flex?
Oh, okay.
What are the technologies?
I'd say the main advantage is is that all major platforms and browsers are supported.
Mm-hmm.
Just about everybody. I don't know of any exceptions to that. Even Linux. There's an Air implementation of Linux.
Okay.
And then also they have built into the Flex framework or the Air framework is SQLite support for the client, and just basically a full library that supports encryption and compression and stuff like that. So if you're going to be storing data offline, which is what I have on my mind, you can store data either into files directly of whatever format you want, or you could have a full SQLite implementation on the client.
And that's a file-based database or in-memory database?
It's file-based. Yeah,
Okay.
it'll store it into a Flash-controlled local storage location.
Okay. What are the disadvantages?
Disadvantages of Flex.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
you have to download this framework.
Well, the disadvantage for the situation that I was in with the state was that they're a .NET development team, and so it would be a whole new development platform.
Learning curve could be a disadvantage, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Is that what you chose? You chose Silverlight?
Yeah, we chose Silverlight. There's
All right,
a
let's
learning
talk
curve
about that.
there too, but at least you're using the C# language.
Yeah. So we look at your team's skill set, and that might guide you. That often does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how does Silverlight implement this?
Silverlight has out of browser, what they call the OOB out of browser. That they introduced that with Silverlight 3. The current version is Silverlight 4. It was released earlier this year, and the advantage that Silverlight has over Flash is that you don't have to create a whole new project type. So let's say you developed an application in Flex, and you had it running inside of a browser, and you said, I want to make this run out of browser. So you have to create a whole new Air project, and you have to share the files between the two projects. So that's a little annoying.
Right.
It's definitely possible. But with Silverlight, if you want to take a Silverlight app that's running in your browser and make it available out of browser, you go to your project properties and you click a checkbox.
Okay. That's it.
And that's it.
It just magically works.
Yeah.
And that's what you chose to do. You chose Silverlight.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was sort of a tie between Flex and Silverlight, and based on your skill set was what pushed you that way.
Yeah. Now, if there hadn't, with some of the advancements in Silverlight 4, if they hadn't released printing support, then we wouldn't have gone with it. Because you couldn't even print from Silverlight 4 from Silverlight until version 4 was released.
I see. So with Silverlight 4, what are there any drawbacks?
Well, the printing support isn't that great yet. It's
still
there.
Okay.
It's very limited.
Okay.
Another drawback is the fact that it's not supported on the Linux OS. Although there is an implementation of it called Moonlight that's done by Novell, the same team that does the Mono framework.
Have you ported it to Moonlight?
No.
Okay.
And they're a little bit behind the implementation. They support anything Silverlight 3 and older, and they've gone into Silverlight 4, and they've even gone into things that aren't in Silverlight but are part of the .NET framework. But they're a little bit behind.
Okay.
But luckily, we don't have that requirement for our state project.
Oh, yeah. So you, state employees all have similar machines, is that why?
Yeah,
Our Windows.
yeah, the minimum requirement is still IE6.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big organization, and they tend to be slow.
Well, yeah, a government
And
organization.
their governments, yeah. There's a lot of bureaucracy in governments. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And then another disadvantage of Silverlight is that there is no built-in client-side database format. So when I'm storing database offline in the application I'm writing, what I'm doing is I'm writing to the file system, and I'm storing my own files and I'm loading them back up.
Are you finding that people already had Silverlight on their machine before they run this application?
No, not all the time. No. I think according to Microsoft, about 65 or more percent of people have it on their machines at this point. And then that of course compared to the Flash install base, which is like on 98% of internet connected machines.
Yeah, start of course. So,
Mm-hmm.
So that means that somebody, if they install your application, they first have to install Silverlight.
Yeah, and so that is a concern because it requires administrative privileges.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So are they administrators or people that are working for the government, or are your customers?
Well, actually, the end
Strict policy
users.
at that.
I'm sorry.
They probably have a pretty strict IT policy.
Yeah, and the government does definitely, but our users are going to be agencies that are contracted by the government. So that's going to be up to them.
Okay.
But it's a lot better than saying, here's this client-side app that you need to install, and you need to install this database on it and stuff like that.
It's much easier to install. You
Yeah.
can click once deployment, I think,
Yeah.
is done on the Silverlight.
Yeah, we could have done a click once WinForms or WCAF implementation, but we wanted our app to run inside of the existing legacy ASP.NET web app.
Hmm.
We wanted it to look like it's part of that app,
Okay.
but also be able to run offline.
I see.
Then that's really, I mean, I should have covered that in the beginning. That's like the scenario where you would want an offline web app. If you don't have to have it as part of an existing website or a new website, if you don't have that requirement, you should just go ahead and create a client-side client app.
Right, you got a lot more power with that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Nope. That pretty much summarizes everything that I ran. My demo that I gave at CodeMesh, I took a ASP.NET MVC application. I created like a simple developer survey type of app, and I've got a single controller action that I have JavaScript, an error, and a Silverlight client all posting to the same action. So I thought that was pretty sweet, and I thought I should throw out there, I was really surprised how similar the Silverlight and the Flex implementations looked.
Okay. So if a developer specializes in one and wants to switch over to the other, that learning curve wouldn't be that steep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good to know. Before we go, why don't you talk about the conference that you're helping put on in Columbus?
Oh yeah, Stir Trek conference. Stirtrek.com, S-T-I-R Trek.com.
Not Star Trek.
Not Star Trek. Yeah, it's a one-day developer conference. We hold it in a movie theater in Columbus, Ohio. And the theme of the conference is web and mobile development. And we have it on the same day as the first cool, geeky summer blockbuster movie of the year. So, 2 years ago it was Star Trek. Last year it was Iron Man 2. And this upcoming May 6th is the upcoming date. And we're going to be having it on opening day of Thor.
Nice.
And so you go, you have a full day of content, of learning, and at the end of the day, you get to see a private screening of the movie.
Terrific. Do you have an online presence?
Yes. The launch pad for my online presence is Google facebook.com/profiles/Matt Casto.
All right. Matt, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. So seriously, just a sentence with technology and friends?